Let's speak to Maryann Horne, a senior humanitarian advisor who joins me from London now. Maryann, I know you're very familiar with Afghanistan. Just explain for us how difficult it is to get rescue workers, aid workers into these kinds of remote mountainous areas.
Yes, I can't, convey enough the sense of desperation there is from the Afghan people, but also the concern of the international humanitarian community at being able to reach those most in need. And this is simply because some of the worst affected areas are really in mountainous areas, in valleys where access is difficult. It's been raining also during the day, and therefore the risk of further landslides is high and may hamper efforts. The Afghan Red Crescent Society is the Afghan national humanitarian organization and has been deploying volunteers that it has in all 34 provinces of Afghanistan have been mobilized, including in the provinces most affected, and teams have been sent from the capital, Kabul, with trucks of medicine, food and emergency assistance to try and alleviate at least some of the worst humanitarian impacts of this earthquake. It has to be said that it's thought that it is the worst earthquake in practically 2 decades. And what you're seeing at the moment is really the tip of the iceberg in terms of the impacts, both immediate but also long term.
Yeah, the Taliban government has put out an appeal for international help. When you see the scale of the devastation, what are the immediate priorities in terms of aid and relief?
Within the first 72 hours, really, it is accessing those who are still trapped in the ground under the rubble. And it's extremely difficult because of access to be able to locate these people, but also extract them. That will be the most urgent, really, need at the moment. With that comes food, shelter, rehabilitation of the water, for example, and access to safe drinking water and sanitation as well. And in terms of the wider needs longer term, for example, protection programs for women and children, particularly vulnerable if they've lost their loved ones, their husbands and families as part of this earthquake, families who may be separated as well. And the list really goes on. Let us remind really your viewers that Afghanistan is already one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world, and this earthquake will only exacerbate what is already a desperate situation where there are no jobs, there is no cash, there is very little food, and Afghans have been doing what they can with what they have really in the past few months. As we see really the hours, it's nighttime now in Afghanistan. As the hours stretch, really the chances of recovering survivors lessen, but certainly the humanitarian community in Afghanistan and the Afghan Red Cross, Crescent, is there, has mobilized and is sending as much relief as possible. In fact, redirecting it from some of the other emergency relief efforts to reach those who really need it the
Maryann,
most.
what kind of state is the disaster and emergency response apparatus in Afghanistan, particularly since the Taliban's takeover? You mentioned the extremely fragile economic situation in Afghanistan. Do they have the resources, the equipment, the facilities to deal with a disaster on this scale?
This is the problem, not just in terms of disaster and emergency recovery, for example, but across all the basic needs and services in Afghanistan. Afghanistan has gone through not just in terms of the transition, but previously has had a drought which has been running. This is the third year that Afghans are experiencing it, a transition, and the coffers of the authorities are bare. A very little humanitarian assistance is coming in, and certainly the money that would have been going to the Afghan authorities has stopped, and therefore the international money that has been pouring in over decades really has stopped, and with it really to a certain extent the capacity of the authorities to respond, and hence the call today from the authorities, but also the humanitarian community at large we are voicing our concern and really calling all those who have Afghanistan's best interest at heart to mobilize, to raise funds, and really to do what they can to assist the victims of this earthquake, but also the 23 million people who today are in need of humanitarian assistance across the country.
Maryann, thank you very much indeed. Maryann Horne there.